Today, we're diving into a really powerful study that makes a provocative claim. City ghettos aren't born, they're made.
You know, we often look at segregated neighborhoods in our cities, and we just kind of think of them as natural, almost inevitable. It's just people clustering with their own communities, right? But is that really the whole story?
Well, the research we're looking at today argues that that whole assumption is just plain wrong. It suggests that ghettos are actively, deliberately constructed through things like violence and fear, and it makes its case by taking a hard look at the history of mid-20th-century Calcutta.
Okay, so let's get into it. And to do that, we first have to see what Kolkata was actually like before this all happened. The picture it paints is probably not what you're expecting.
First things first, we've got to get our terms straight. This study makes a really crucial distinction between a busty, which is basically a slum defined by poverty, and a ghetto. A ghetto, in this context, is totally different. It's a place where people from all economic classes, we're talking rich, poor, and in between, are forced to live together, bound not by how much money they have, but by their shared religious identity.
So before 1946, Calcutta was not some neatly divided city. As you can see from this map, it was this complex, interwoven tapestry of Hindu and Muslim populations. See all those dotted areas? Those represent mixed neighborhoods, places where communities literally shared the same streets.
And this complexity really comes to life when you look at the official inquiry that happened after the riots. A police officer, S.N. Rout, was being interrogated, and the commissioners were trying to get him to draw these clean, simple lines on a map. They asked about one specific area, and he said, mostly Muslims.
But they kept pushing him, trying to confirm this neat little Hindu here, Muslim there divide. So Hindus here and Muslims there. And Officer Rout, who actually knew the streets, corrected them with one single powerful word: mixed.
The commissioners tried again, with another area, trying to slap a simple label on it. But again, the officer's answer just didn't fit their neat boxes. Yeah, it was predominantly Muslim, he said, but then he stressed, there are Hindus too. The reality on the ground was integrated, not segregated.
So, let's talk about the event that completely shattered this delicate balance. Because in August 1946, everything, and I mean everything, changed.
What started as a political protest on something called Direct Action Day just exploded. It turned into widespread communal violence. And this wasn't a small thing. The source material says it was on the scale of a civil war, and it permanently, fundamentally changed the city's social fabric.
The human cost was just staggering. In just 1 week, the official death toll was over 4,000 people.
And the displacement, it was even bigger. We're talking over 200,000 people. That's 10% of the city's entire population at the time, all forced to run for their lives, to flee their homes. But here's the thing. This explosion of violence wasn't random. Not at all. It followed a very specific logic, one that actually began to physically redraw the map of the city.
The violence was incredibly systematic. It specifically targeted the seams holding the city's different communities together. As the research lays out, Muslims were driven out of Hindu-majority slums, and Muslim-majority slums were attacked if they were surrounded by Hindu areas. The goal wasn't just chaos. It was about deliberately breaking that mix and forcing everyone apart.
This comparison right here, this is the heart of the whole argument. On the left, that's the 1931 census. See how Muslims are spread out all over the city? Now look at the right. This is just 30 years later in 1961. The change it's just stunning. You can literally see what the paper calls the cleansing of Muslims from entire sections of the city. They've been forced into just a few tiny pockets. And the numbers, they tell the exact same stark story. In 1941, the Muslim population was about a third of the Hindu population. Just 10 years later, after the riots and partition, it had plunged to just 14%. Think about that. More than half the community's share of the population just gone in a single decade.
Now, the initial shock of the 46 killings didn't just fade away. It was actually cemented into permanent boundaries by a whole series of events that came next. Events that just kept the pressure on.
A really clear and frankly chilling pattern emerges over the next couple of decades. After that first big displacement in 46 and 47, you see the riots of 1950, targeting areas where Muslims still had a pretty significant presence. Then fast forward to 1964, and the riots are targeting areas with an even higher Muslim concentration. It was this shifting geography of violence that was progressively squeezing the Muslim population into smaller and smaller, more isolated pockets. The researchers actually give this process a name: spatial minoritization. It's the active, deliberate creation of a segregated landscape. It's how a community can become invisible in the wider city, but at the same time become hypervisible and contained inside the walls, visible or invisible, of the ghetto.
So what does this all leave us with? What's the legacy?
Well, the crucial point here is that this isn't just about something that happened a long time ago. It tells us something fundamental about what a ghetto really is.
This testimony from a survivor named Abdul Wahid is just so revealing. He says the 1964 riot wasn't even primarily about killing people. He says it was about getting the space vacated. The violence was a tool. It was a tool for dispossession, a way to permanently redraw the map of who belonged where. And this all leads to the paper's final, powerful conclusion. A ghetto is not a static place. It's not a finished product. It's a process. It's this ongoing force where the very growth of a city is tangled up with the continuous displacement and containment of minority communities. In a sense, the city grows by chasing the ghetto.
And that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. If the making of a ghetto is a process, not just some place on a map, what are the forces, whether they're violent or something else entirely, that are still drawing and redrawing the invisible boundaries in our own cities right now, today?